Good evening. Let me begin by proposing a formula. A free press helps create the public square it covers. At the same time, a free press reports on and analyzes what happens in the public square. It helps create the conditions that allow a public square to be possible in the first place. What happens when that capacity, that role of the press, is systematically attacked, deliberately undermined, purposely destroyed? Tonight, we focus our attention on what other institutions in society, the churches, business, the schools, civil society, and so on, can do in the face of these attacks to help journalism as an institution. I am John Nery, and you are in the public square. Like a dying monster claiming one more victim, the Duterte administration, in its last days, managed to turn the National Telecommunications Commission into a weapon, using the anti-terror law to force Philippine internet service providers to block access to a total of 28 websites, ostensibly because of links to quote-unquote terrorist organizations. It is an absurd reason and an unconstitutional act. One of the websites blocked is the long-running independent news site bulletproofcom, which is known for its critical coverage of underreported issues. The news of the NTC ban comes at a time when many efforts by civil society groups to find ways to help the media are underway. How will this latest attack impact on these efforts? We are joined tonight by two friends of the free press and by an independent and outstanding journalist. Marian Pastor Roces is an eminent cultural critic. Bart Guingona is a renowned actor and director. And together and with colleagues, they have organized the Media Nation Conference, an annual meeting of journalists since 2004. The upcoming Media Nation Conference is number 18. And journalist Len Olea is managing editor of bulletproofcom and Secretary General of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines. Good evening, Marian, Bart, Len. Thank you for joining us tonight in the public square.
Good evening, John.
Good evening,
Good
John.
evening, Len, Marian.
Good evening, Len.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Len, maybe I'll start with you. So what's the latest on bulletproofcom? How is the ban affecting you as of this moment? And what are your next steps?
Hello, sir. Can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I think we have a slight problem with the connection, right? Yeah. So just to repeat, no? How is bulletproofcom doing right now?
We were really surprised, and the blocking of our website outraged us. But of course, we are also overwhelmed by the support and solidarity from media organizations and advocates. So, really appreciate the solidarity shown to us.
What are the next steps that you're planning to take or you have already taken?
For now, we have set up our web host, Korea Media Foundation, set up our mirror site so that the public can access us. It's via bulletlat.org. And also the mirror site set up by the Reporters Sans Frontiers or RSF since 2019 is still alive, is still up. So you can also access us through that mirror site. We also consulted with our lawyers and we're looking into legal remedies available. First, of course, is to stop the implementation of this ridiculous, unconstitutional, and arbitrary order from the NTC. And second, of course, is to challenge and question such action?
This is not the first time that you've come under attack, but this attack is quite different, right? I mean, this is not a distributed denial of service attack anymore. It's a official government policy. um, have you were you taken by surprise that this was the next form of attack that you experienced?
Yes, so we never thought they could be this brazen. As you mentioned, the cyber attacks in the form of distributed denial of service attacks which started in 2018. Um, we were able to mitigate that because of the support from different digital experts. But this new kind of censorship is really ridiculous because it has no basis at all. Imagine a letter from National Security Advisor Hermogenes Peron Jr.
Mhm.
was used as the basis for the memo.
Mhm.
And he presented not an iota of evidence against us and any of the organizations involved in the list.
That's right. Marian, if I could ask you, can you help us think through this issue? I mean, what are the implications that we're looking at here?
The first impact, of course, would be the inaccessibility of the website for some of our subscribers. So we learned about that blocking because of our readers messaging us, asking about the website. So we reached out to our web host, the Korea Media Foundation, which
Mhm.
has been helping us since 2019. And they conducted this quick investigation and confirmed that it was indeed a deliberate act on the part of the internet service provider. And later we learned that the ISP only acted upon the order from the NTC. And this afternoon, we confirmed that Globe apparently implemented the order because some of our subscribers using Globe as their ISP also are having difficulty accessing the website. So there's this immediate impact. And this is very alarming because just as in the case of DDoS, we thought it would just be confined with the alternative video websites. But later on, even Rappler, ABS-CBN, CNN Philippines were also subjected to DDoS, especially during the height of the election. So this could all proceed then. And we are raising the alarm because this is just the beginning, we think, of what we see as scaling up of media repression with the incoming presidency.
Thank you, Len. I tried accessing bulletproofcom from where I am right now. I use Globe as my service provider, and I cannot access it. No. My next question is for Marian. Marian, do you agree with that view that this is not the culmination of the Duterte attacks on the media, but rather the beginning of a new wave, a scaling up, as Len said, of attacks on the media, which we might expect from the next administration?
The short answer is yes, John. But with your permission, I'd like to kind of can I take a long view?
Yes,
Um,
please. Mhm.
because it seems really utterly necessary at this point to get into the detail, into the grain of what's going on right now, as we have
Mhm.
just been informed, but also to see it like from with a kind of broad perspective. Um, your question actually reminded me that I just saw the movie Seabird last night on Netflix, and it's a story of Jean Seabird, who was hounded by the FBI. She was red tagged until she lost her mind for supporting the Black Panthers and funding them. Red tagging is a 1950s, 1960s strategy. It belongs to a world that is no longer that we no longer live in, and it's a world that is framed by supposedly violent competition between a left and a right. Again, a formulation that it has no value in our analysis today, nor in the way we live our lives today. And so when we hear these signals, media repression, um, you're hearing a signal that the incoming administration is wanting a reprise, a replay of something that happened in the 1960s, 70s, and through the decades. And why the replay, even if it's no longer our time? Um, there's another tangent. So from Jane Seberg, I'm going to go into a tangent to Vladimir Putin right now, whose entire Ukraine offensive is based on the idea of a golden age that Russia has lost. And the idea of Junior is a golden age that the Philippines has lost that he wants to revitalize and bring back. And he's dragging the entire country back into that supposed golden age, which never existed. And so, what are the features of that, of how you prosecute such a return to a golden age? It's media repression, it's militarization, it's really all kinds of suppression by violent means. And we're seeing it as a very strong signal right now that it is a replay that they're planning for. Now, because number one, we're not in the 1960s, and number two, there was no golden age. Then we're actually living a kind of a bigger nightmare in the coming years. So, in broad strokes,
Yeah.
yeah. What I'd like to add, John, is that these ideas, these Cold War ideas, are bankrupt ideas. They're not just not useful for analysis today, they're also empty. There's nothing there except pure violence.
So the irony here, and thanks for pointing this out, is that we have a literal general who's fighting what he thinks is a war,
Yes.
based on an old war,
It's an
or an
old
old
war.
war framework, but which does not apply to us anymore, right?
Nor did that war exist. I mean, nor did that golden age exist.
Mhm. That's right. Okay, well, that really is the long view. Thank you. You and Bart. So my next question is for Bart. You've been working as part of civil society to create a forum for practicing journalists to exchange notes. To come together at least once a year. So you started in 2004, and full disclosure, of course, I've been a part of this entire enterprise as well as a participant and as a co-convener. But you are the main organizers. Um, Bart, you're in the middle of preparations for yet another Media Nation conference, number 18. Um, you were already designing the next conference to be different from previous ones, right? So
Right.
I want to ask you one, what's the difference, and number two, this latest attack, no, on bulletproofcom and 27 other websites, how does that impact on your preparations or on the design of the conference?
No, well, obviously, it's an issue that cannot be ignored, and it necessarily will have to be touched upon. But uh, thanks for bringing up the idea that civil society has been trying to put together these conferences for the last 18 years. It's because uh, many of us recognize the importance of the the press as a pillar of democracy. Um, for democracy to be functional, for it to give its optimal benefit to society, it needs necessarily to be unfettered. It has its problems, which is why we've put this together. You know, there were in the early years we were talking about the tabloidization of the news, the tension
Mhm.
between commerce and ethical standards, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
But um, now it seems that the most urgent issue is existential. It is the actual threat to the institution, the pillar of a free press, uh, and therefore a threat to democracy, uh, and its very foundation. Um, so yes, we need to tackle it. What is different this year is
Mhm.
that whereas in the past years, the Media Nation conferences have always been closed and attended only by the members of the media. This year, we are opening it to a large cross section of stakeholders. Why?
Mhm.
Because we've come to realize that this information, as Jonathan Ong,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
disinformation expert says,
Mhm.
um, you no longer can fight disinformation from just within the press or the media. Um, Fact checking will fall to the ground unless it is supported by a larger stakeholder base. Therefore, in his words, he says disinformation is a problem that needs to be approached from a whole of society approach. So
Mhm.
this year we're inviting outsiders from the clergy, from the education sector, from the justice sector, and so on and so forth, to um, to help in fighting the disease of disinformation, and of
Thanks,
course
Bart.
the
Mhm.
threat, the very real threat to a free press.
Thank you, Bart. Len, when Bart says the problem facing journalists today is existential, siguro that hits you on a different level, right? Kasi since 2018 pa kayo binabanatan talaga yung bulletlap.com and other alternative and independent media, no? Um, can you talk about some of the other forms of harassment and abuse that you've received? Hindi lang itong latest na, government policy.
Yes, we heard about the cyber attacks in late 2018,
Mm-hmm.
and then we confirmed that it was distributed denial of service attacks in early 2019. And we filed a civil case against the IT companies involved in the cyber attacks. And
Mm-hmm.
we won that case in the sense that these IT companies pledged not to allow themselves again to be used for media repression. And fast forward to 2021, there was another series of DDoS attacks. And this time it was traced to the infrastructure from the DOST. And then later it was traced to the Philippine
To the Philippine
Army.
Army. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so it was clear that the attacks have been state-sponsored. And I would like to agree with Miss Marian Pastor Roces here because we have been red tagged repeatedly. We were labeled as communist fronts during the time of Gloria Arroyo. If you remember that incident, with they
Mm-hmm.
had this list of communist fronts, including Bulatlat, I think
Mm-hmm.
PCIJ, and even CBCP.
Mm-hmm.
We were labeled as enemies of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then under this outgoing Duterte administration, again, we have been repeatedly red tagged by no less than the NTFL CAC. So using their social media platforms, etc. So what we see here is that any media outfit or anyone for that matter who um, does not toe the line of government are considered enemies, are considered communist fronts or sympathizers. So that is really alarming. But we are setting the stage for harassment, and we have seen in recent years the deliberate attempts to discredit the media profession. At the same time, they're trying to drumbeat the narratives peddled by their troll army. So it's a two-pronged approach against truth tellers, and of course, at the losing end, of course, are the audience. No? So we really have to work with other sectors. So it's high time that we involve the clergy, the academe, and other sectors in the fight against disinformation. What is really laughable here is Esperon's claims that Bullet and Pinoy Weekly, the other alternative media website, included the blacklist, are agents of disinformation. So that is really unacceptable because we have proven in the past 2 decades that we are a credible source of information, and they are the ones peddling lies.
Yeah, I think that the government has a problem. Maybe we can use we can paraphrase T.S. Eliot. No? They cannot stand too much reality. That's I think that's their problem with the coverage of alternative independent media like bulletlat.com. I'd like to ask. In this order, Marian, Bart, and then Len. Um, we talked about reaching out to other stakeholders, the churches, the schools, and so on. But can we be more specific? What can these other institutions do to help the media? Can we? Sorry, Bart and Marianne, without preempting your conference, uh, but can we throw out some ideas there? Whether large or small. Now, what can other institutions do? So, Marianne first, and Bart, and then Len.
I'm not going to focus on ideas, although I'll get there eventually.
Sure.
This
Okay.
is going to be very short. But I'd like to point out first that, journalism, the media, has always needed a constituency. I mean, it's not as though it is only needing it now. In the same manner that the others that are not the fourth estate, the judiciary has always needed its own constituency, people who like the rule of law or to live within it. You need Congress always cultivates its constituency. The institutions of a democratic state needs its people to support it, to support the idea that information is necessary for informed decision making. Accurate information is necessary because otherwise you can't make up your mind properly. All right, and then everything goes haywire. Now, in terms of the existential threat that clearly is upon us, not just the media but all of us, because without a responsible media, then we can't make up our minds how to approach our reality, how to make decisions. Um, it reminds us that while media is in the center of delivering accurate information, accurate synthesis, as a matter of fact, uh, all of us who are in the different professions, the artists are always working with precision instruments, precision information. Doctors need to be precise, need to be accurate. Lawyers need to be accurate. Educators obviously need to be accurate. So there's a whole range of professionates. In fact, all of the professionates are invested in accuracy and precision. Now, it is the media's job, of course, to, I suppose, gather all of that accuracy and deliver it to the general public. But I'd like to point out something that is terribly wrong, which is that if all of us in our, sort of higher education professional work are invested in, I'm not even saying truth, in precision, in accurate information, then uh, then it is a crying shame that the majority of our co-citizens are left without that, are left without precision information. And therefore, all of us have to make sure that the work that we do in defining reality as empirically calculable,
Mhm.
um, all of that must be shared with the entire population. Now,
Mhm.
how do we do that? John, that's the subject of our 2 day discussion. And I
Mhm.
really hope that we could network at least,
Mhm.
that we could tell each other what we're doing because everyone's doing their own thing. But I think the essential first step is to understand that it is a form of inequality where most of our co-citizens are not allowed the chance to work with accurate information.
Thank you. My takeaway there is that these other institutions must make common cause to
Mhm.
demand or to create the conditions for precision information. Thank you. Bart?
Alam mo, ang nangyayari ngayon ay hindi bago, no? Kasi gawain ito ng lahat ng mga pasistang states, mga estado
Mhm.
since the time of
Mhm.
Hitler. The first thing he did was he closed down all the opposing independent press and labeled them as owned by Jews. Uh, Stalin did the same thing in China and so on and so forth. This is not new, and we should learn from history. Dapat dapat i-sound natin ang alarm para magkaisa ang lahat ng tao para magkabigkis at nakatayong sama-sama at i-defend ang karapatan natin magkaroon ng and and disciplined information, no? uh, in other words, we have to start first with sounding an alarm.
Mhm.
um, in other words, we've got to start pointing to the past as something that looks like it's about to repeat. It's about to be repeated. No, during the time
Mhm.
of Marcos, that's exactly what he did. Right, the
Mhm.
first Marcos. I'm talking about the first Marcos. That's exactly what he did, and then he put up the Philippine Express, Journal, and etc.
Mhm.
and all the crony media. Um, Sana naman we learn our lesson. Alam mo, 2022 na. Sana naman hindi na payagan ng mga tao na mangyari ang mga yun ulit.
Salamat Bart. Ang nakuha ko dun is kailangan natin magkaroon ng common understanding. First of all, we need to sound the alarm. It's not just the
Mm-mm.
role of one institution or of many institutions, no? Kailangan gisingin lahat ng sectors. But also isang nakuha ko dun sa sinabi mo, we need to reach a common understanding of the problem, no? Yun
Tama.
siguro.
Tama yun.
Salamat. Len, what about you?
Of course, I agree with Miss Marian and Sir Bart. No? Idadagdag ko lang po siguro is that we need to reach out to the communities, especially those targeted by disinformation. Kaya halimbawa kahit sa media, di ba, we're trying to penetrate TikTok and other
Mhm.
popular social media platforms kahit ano siya, parang hindi siya uncharted territory, kumbaga. But of course, we realized that we really need to reach out to the communities. And the role of the academe and the church, for example, are really vital in reaching out to these communities. Sa immediate, of course, we call on the public to join us in asserting press freedom. So by voicing out their condemnation whenever there is an attack against Rappler, for example, against ABS-CBN, against other independent media institutions, and use social media as their tool in defending press freedom, because at the end of the day, it's not a right for journalists only, but it's the right of the public to access credible, timely, and relevant information.
Thank you, Len. My next question is for Bart and Marian. Actually, Bart already referenced this earlier. So you've had 18 years of organizing work, working with practicing journalists, and you've seen the issues evolve. So what I want to ask the two of you is that are there common problems? If you step back and look at the last 18 years, what are the commonalities in the issues that Media Nation focused on? And have there been other crises that the media faced in the last 18 years that's similar to the present crisis of disinformation that we're facing? Maybe Bart first and then
Yeah,
Marian.
yeah. In the past, for the past 18 years, we've been through problems that plague the media. There was a time na minasaker sila, kayo, di ba? Minasaker doon sa yung Ampatuan massacre. May time na grabe ang trolling na nangyayari sa media. In other words, ang nangyayari is ginagawang kontrabida yung nagsasabi ng totoo. One of my favorite pieces of literature is Henrik Ibsen's An Enemy of the People. Yes. Dahil dun sa isang mama na nagsasabi ng totoo, ang buong town na nadedepend doon sa kanilang livelihood ay nagalit sa kanya, even if he was saying the truth. And that's, can you imagine 19th century on, and it's still happening. The truth teller is being made kontrabida. We've got to change that mindset. Our allies are the truth tellers. Why? Because no matter how painful the truth is, it will help us to be better and to grow as human beings. So we need to defend the press as our allies in the saying of the truth.
Thanks, Bart. Marian?
Yung tinatanong mo kung ano yung commonality through time, ang aking naalalang palagi ay nagtagal din bago nagkaroon ng pagsasama ang tri-media. Umabot ng dekada bago nagkaroon ng tinatawag na kumpiyansa ang isa't isa sa isa't isa. Kaya nga Chatham House Rules ang ating ginawang patakaran sa ating Media Nation. So kaya walang masyadong nakakaalam na naganap ang Media Nation over 17 years na, pang 18th year na ngayon. Bakit ko binabanggit ito? Dahil maraming kinailangang maunawaan bago nagkaroon ng konfiyansang yon. Unang-una, ang media ay negosyo. Hindi ko sinasabing lahat ng media ay negosyo dahil may independent media, pero it's competitive, it's a business, and there's obviously tension between owners and journalists. So yan, hindi naman nawawala yung modelo ng pamamahayag na nakabatay sa kompetisyon sa palengke ng bentahan ng dyaryo at produkto sa telebisyon at radyo at iba't ibang plataforma. Common yan, hindi natin masasabing tapos na ang pagpupulong. Marami na tayong napag-usapan tungkol sa paano ba magkaroon ng independent media talaga, na independent sa malaking pera o sa vested interest ng may-ari. Madami tayong pinag-usapan tungkol dyan, hindi pa tapos. So yan ay isang common thread. Pero bagamat nagkaroon yung common thread na yan at iba-iba ang naging kasagutan ng individual na mamamahayag at iba-iba din ang naging tugon ng iba-ibang grupo para maibsan yung problema ng business competition para maging matuwid at matino at mahusay, maayos ang pamamahayag. Nagkaroon tayo ng mahabang panahon ng pag-iisip-isip ng iba't ibang paraan. Alright. Iba ba? Isa lamang yun Isa lamang yun sa naging mahabang talakayan. Pero imbis na banggitin ko pa yung ibang mahahabang talakayan, gusto ko nang pumunta ngayon sa ngayon. At sa ngayon, ang ating problema sa tingin ko ay iba. Nasabi ko kanina na gustong ibalik ang panahon ni Marcos. Gustong ibalik ang mga ideya ng panahon ni Marcos. Pero hindi na ito ang panahon ni Marcos. Magkaiba. So ang ating hinaharap ay ibang klaseng krisis. Okay, pareho ang nakikita natin sa ibabaw. Nandyan ang media repression, nandyan ang pananakot, nandyan ang karahasan. Maaring magkaroon tayo ng pagkulong, pagpatay, hindi yan malayo. Bagamat mahirap isipin. Pero ang gusto kong bigyan ng diin ay yung pagkakaiba ng panahon ng konektado ang buong mundo sa pamamagitan ng digital communications. Ibang-iba ito. Yung sumapit sa atin ng dilubyo ng kasinungalingan, iba ito. Yung sumapit tayo sa hindi na alam ng nakararami kung paano isipin ang tama, mali, ang totoo, hindi totoo, iba ito. Ito'y hindi pa nangyari sa ganitong kalaki. And hindi na tayo mababalik sa nakaraan. Nandiyan na ito. So, gusto ko lamang sabihin na isipin natin kung gaanong kaiba ito at kung paano natin haharapin ito.
Oh, thank you. One of my own takeaways, no, I attended the Media Nation in the last 17 years, siguro mga 12 or 13 times, was that one of the common answers to the problems, whatever the problem was we need to be more professional, di ba? Parang professionalization ang isa sa mga sagot. Naintindihan ko yun, no? Parang, we have to go back to the basics, parang ganyan. But I think now na we're looking at the problems that we're facing right now, it seems so much clearer to me na yung sagot na professionalization is necessary but not sufficient. Ano? Kasi paano yan, no? You do good work and then you wake up one day and you see a memo from the NTC telling the ISP, don't run these, block access to these websites. I mean, you've done all the professional work. So I think that's one thing na I think has become clearer in this crisis. No? Professionalization is important, it's necessary, but not sufficient to resolve the matter. We're running long. Len, if I can ask you the last question. Len, sang-ayon ka ba dun sa pananaw na yung atake sa bulletproofcom, yung NTC blocking ngayon, no? Parte lang yan ng isang malaking plano laban sa media, no? Kasama diyan sa malaking plano yung pag-legitimize ng mga vloggers and influencers. Kasama diyan sa malaking plano yung pag-delegitimize ng mga mainstream media, tawag sa kanila bias and so on. Sang-ayon ka ba dun sa pananaw na yun? Tsaka ano yung your own personal insight into that view?
Definitely yes, pero may caveat din po. Kasi una, ako personally, I have good friends na digital bloggers and bloggers, so they actually help us in amplifying,
Thank you. Yes.
The truth. Yeah. But of course, in recent months, we have witnessed how the pro-Marcos bloggers have been kumbaga, emboldened. Yan, to peddle lies. At yun yung nakikita natin, mas dun yung tunguhin nung plan to accredit this group.
Mhm.
Kaya it's part of the tactic against the media, against legitimate sources of information. That's why reiterate natin yung binanggit na nung dalawa pa nating kasama rito, that we really have to let the public know the extent of this problem, the problem of disinformation, and encourage them to promote legitimate sources of information in order to fight the lies. So ano po, tuloy-tuloy na malaking trabaho ito, hindi lang ng media, and we thank of course the advocates at saka iba pa nating kapanalig, kailangan pa nating magparami para magtuloy-tuloy yung ating trabaho na paglaban dito sa disinformasyon at kasinungalingan.
Actually, ang dami ko pang gustong itanong but we've run out of time. Marian Pastor Roces, Bart Guingona, Len Olea, thank you for your time, your insights, and your work supporting or illuminating the public square. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Len.
Maraming salamat din po.
Thank you, John, for this opportunity.
A free press, which creates and needs its own constituency, helps create the public square that it covers. But so do many other institutions that inhabit that public square. They all have a role to play in ensuring that the public sphere is open, inclusive, accessible, free. With everyone's help, the NTC ban must be removed, the websites unblocked, the media assisted in all possible ways, because the public square itself is at risk. That's it for us tonight. The next step for engaged citizens is always to take a more active part in rebuilding our democracy. See you in the public square. This is John Nery. Thank you and good night.